Thank you for joining us for today's Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee hearing. We are excited to hear from leaders in sustainable development and waste diversion, discuss building performance standards, available recycling programs, and the circular economy in Central Ohio. I do want to highlight, because we have kind of set the example of every time we hold a hearing, we have a new policy to roll out. Today is really just an informational hearing. There is no feedback on specific code changes. I think that is to come, but today is more informational related to recycling and building standards going forward. Trash, illegal dumping is one of the big issues in the city. I have to say I was on the job as a council member for a good 1 hour before I received my first email online with someone frustrated about litter and illegal dumping in the area. In addition, a bulk of the constituent work my staff handles each week is related to trash. So we have some amazing waste diversion programs currently available to residents, and there are many efforts to expand reuse and recycling in our city. And so I'm excited to kind of highlight some of that work here today with the team from Public Service. So thank you all for being here today. I do want to acknowledge my colleague, Councilmember Beatty, for being here. Councilmember, I don't know if you had any opening remarks or anything. All right, well, with that, let's get started. We will kick off the waste diversion portion of the hearing with a presentation from our Department of Public Service. Presenting for the department today, we have Tim Swager, the Refuse Administrator, and Ari Alex, the Sustainability Administrator. Fellas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Councilmember Weish. That's a little loud. Thank you, Councilmember Weish. Thank you, Councilmember Beatty, as well. Thanks for the opportunity to come speak and talk about our great programs here in the city, and look forward to continue working with you on some of the waste diversion programs that we've started and hope to continue. With that, just a little bit real quickly about the Division of Refuse. We visit 350,000 of our residents every single week. So we're tasked with picking up residential waste from all of our residences, and then but we also have refuse compliance investigators that investigate all the illegal dumping that we get complaints or concerns, or our drivers or someone else notice. We have illegal dumping crews that do nothing but drive around the city looking for illegal dumping and collecting that and disposing of that property. We manage the containers out there, which are over 600,000 containers. Those are your trash and recycling containers, so we manage those. And then we have Keep Columbus Beautiful, which runs our recycling of organics and litter, de-littering throughout the city. So that's what the Division of Refuse does. We have a landfill challenge, I'll call it, and we've got some waste diversion strategies that we work with our partners here, SWACO, that have joined us. And we've got a lot of programs that we work towards to try to extend the life of that landfill. With that, SWACO actually did a landfill waste characterization report, and as you'll see there on the slide, about just over 40% of what residents currently throw away could be recycled in our current programs. So curbside recycling, yard waste, things of the, that we allow curbside collection. That's 137,000 tons per year that is currently going to the landfill that could be diverted without starting any new programs. So that's a large number there as well that we've offered to handle. So with our bi-weekly yard waste program, we have over 16,000 tons is diverted from the landfill. That's through a partnership with SWACO. We divert that landfill material by going to and reusing that primarily as mulch. And then we also divert 34,000 tons just through the curbside recycling, which, as you know, was expanded to weekly, and we've seen an increase on the tonnage that we have there. So that is what we're currently diverting through those curbside. So 50 to 60,000 tons a year, but we have a potential of another 137,000 that's sitting out there if we can get everyone to, one, educate, and then two, participate. One other thing I want to highlight is the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. The mayor signed us on to this, and this is a program that trying to work to divert food waste from the landfill, and there's a multitude of ways that we try to accomplish that. But the Milan Urban Food Waste Policy Pact is a major step for the city of Columbus to commit to, and with the goal of diverting that with the EPA wasted food scale. If you go through that slide, you'll see there's a bunch of different ways to divert food waste. You can donate, upcycle, you can feed animals, you can compost it, or it can be anaerobic digestion. So there's a bunch of different ways. It's not one size fits all and when it comes to the food waste. And I think some of those strategies is what we're working on developing with SWACO, and they're leading the region in some of those areas. And that's why we're here together today, is to talk about better ways to accomplish some of those things. We've done a few things like the food rescue pilot project, as you guys are aware of. Last year at the Jazz and Ribs Fest, we diverted 780 pounds was rescued, and that food was, the vendors and everything that go to these festivals and stuff, they have food waste would typically be. We're able to divert that and send those to get reused and donate those to area nonprofits that are able to make other product or feed some of the folks that need it through those programs. So that's one major way that we've, again, it was a pilot project, but it's designed to see if we can replicate that and see how much. But one program, 780 pounds. We also have 9 free food scraps drop-off locations throughout the city, and you can go to our city website to get the exact ones. They're shown there on the map. Those locations, that is all anaerobic digestion or composting through those, but that is where residents can drop off their food scraps. They can sign up, and so far this year to date, we've diverted over 100 tons through those 9 drop-off locations, and those are just within the city limits. In the food waste area, Ohio State and the USDA did the largest food waste study in America for us, and that's where we're getting a lot of our data. We'll work with SWACO on this as well. This is where we're trying to figure out how to accomplish this. What can we do on the food waste side to accomplish better diversion? On the recycling side, some things that we're working on and continue to work on is city offices and parks recycling, getting better at it ourselves. We have recycling, but we're working at getting better in our own city facilities and then in our parks, because if you go to a lot of the parks, especially the sports parks, there's a lot of plastics and aluminum going into those trash cans, and we're trying to figure out better ways to capture that recycling. A lot of Gatorade bottles and water bottles. So we're trying to work out different ways to capture that and service those fields as well. And then some of the other programs we've got an off-campus can ferry project that's up in the OSU off-campus area, where we have a little contest up there to collect cans for the students, and they can win some gift cards and things of that nature that have been donated, and we're able to divert material out of the landfill that way. We have the multifamily recycling pilot project that you're aware of. That has a lot of potential there. We work with SWACO on that. We have the OSU campus area move out, move in project. So every year, a small city moves in and out of the OSU off-campus area, and all those students coming in and out, there's a lot of waste generated, but a lot of that could be diverted, especially when they move back in and they order a bunch of new furniture and TVs and all that cardboard that comes in. That had historically just gone into the waste stream, and we've worked really hard the last 3-4 years of getting opportunities for students to recycle that. They come off campus having recycled while they were on campus, because OSU's got a nice recycling program with dorms and everything. So when they go off campus, we want to make sure we make lifelong recyclers out of those students. So this is an effort to continue that mentality. And then we also have annual collections for like pumpkins and yard signs and political signs. We do some, unique ones. They're not gigantic diverters, but it's again setting the mindset of reduce and reuse and recycle rather than just throw those away. We have 2 convenience centers we opened. One is 2100 Island Creek Drive, and the other is at our 1650, our Georgesville Road station. Those are free and open to the public to drop off materials. You can drop those off. Any residents can come in. It's easily disposed of. We're open Tuesday through Saturday. We are closed Sundays and Mondays, but we opened on Saturday instead because we felt a lot of residents could get to those easier. So that's why we're on those Tuesday through Saturday. And we've nearly 240 tons have been diverted just this year already. So we've been really successful in the convenience centers, and it's not just recycling; it's the reuse side, because we've got a lot of partnerships for furniture and clothing and a lot of the other items that are not just being recycled; they're actually being reused. And with that, I will turn it over to Joe Lombardi with Swaco.
Well, hold on one second before we
yeah.
make that transition. Just a couple questions for you, Tim.
Yep.
One, appreciate you being here and kind of going through some of the programs that the city is already doing. One of my questions was related to the waste and reuse convenience centers. And just curious, like, how is that actually keeping things out of landfills? Like, for folks who have not been, can you just walk through that a little bit more?
Sure. So as a resident, if you pull into that waste center, the convenience centers, we have a person there that meets you, talks to you about what you have to dispose of. If you have like a bicycle, we have programs where you can drop off your bike there, and we've got people that will come collect those bikes, repair them, restore them, and donate them. We have areas with food banks. We have partnerships with Goodwill, things of that nature. So some of those tables and TVs and then the electronics that were typically going to landfill, we send that out to a electronics recycler who goes through those and takes the material out of the electronics, and they get credit for those. So there's a lot of companies that are willing to partner with us to get those credits. And then we've got styrofoam over there that we have a condenser that we actually work with Swaco on the condenser as well. So those items, the landfill would normally, if you put it curbside in your container, it's going to the landfill. If you come visit us with those items, we're sending those to other areas to make products out of them. So, and we just take even if you have extra curbside recycling, say you only have one container at your house and don't choose to get a second one because you don't normally need it, but you have a big party and you've got a bunch of extra recycling, you can drop that off at our convenience center free of charge, and then we'll dump that off at Rumpke, the recycling facility, and they have customers that turn those into actual products or a can. And I know, Councilmember Weiss, you've made that tour visit there. You know, a can donated or dropped off rather at one of our convenience center can be a can back on this store shelf within 30 days. I mean, it's a very quick turnaround on those items to be reused.
That's exciting. Are there plans from the department's perspective to add more centers in the city?
Yeah, we'd like to add a third one. It's something where we've been working with Swaco again. We've got the one on the southeast side of town and the southwest side. The property and space are the challenges for us, and we're looking for some of the other area communities to work with them, and this is where Swaco's the leader of the region to help us, as Joe will speak to what they can and can't do in that area. But we're looking to try to get something toward the north side of Columbus or in the north side of the region to help out up there.
I mean, you know, I live in the Crown District. We're all the way up north, so we would love something a little closer to home.
Yep.
I'm curious, the collaboration, though, is it there in terms of other departments, right? Other city departments have land. Is there the potential to kind of partner with those departments to have that space for a convenience center in those locations, too?
Yeah, I think that's where we're talking to some of the other divisions and departments. I know within public service, our divisions will help us every way we can. The other departments, we're reaching out to them to see what their future plans are. As you know, land is tight in a lot of those areas, so taking it up and using it, because once we set ground and actually use the convenience center, we're trying to find places we can remain. What we don't want to do is have a convenience center for 2 years and have to move it because of expansion. So we're really looking at as much as permanent can get when we put them in. So we have cooperation there. It's just working through the details of how to locate a space.
Appreciate that. And then you talked a little bit about food waste, which is exciting. Obviously, we just had Jazz and Rib Fest this past weekend. Just kind of curious, food waste diversion efforts, are there more? Like, how successful has it been? Obviously, we started the pilot last year and collected that poundage, but curious if it's been an increase this year, and are there additional programs?
I'm going to let Alex speak to the food waste side.
Sure.
Thanks, Administrator Swager, Councilmember Weish. Yes, so this year at Jazz and Ribs Fest, we actually had an increase of weight thanks to help from your staff that were there. We got 820 pounds. When we look at food, we really want to look at how do we reduce that waste and then reuse those items before it actually becomes waste. If we were to collect all of the wasted food right now, we would not have the composting or digester capacity to handle it, nor would we want to, because that's not the highest and best value of those items. So the first thing is, how do we educate residents about reducing that waste? And the largest symptom of waste, or the cause of that waste, is the date labels. And when we look at the date labels, it's sell-by dates. These are manufacturer dates. These are not government-regulated dates. And these actually are often like what the manufacturer thinks is the best for the product. And so people see the sell-by date. They think it's the day after. They think they have to throw away that bread, even though that bread may still be good for another week or so. It may not be as fresh, but it's not going to hurt you. So it's educating residents on that and what is proper storage of that food, which is really important. The next piece is, how do we get them to use eat their leftovers, use scraps that they might have. If you have a bunch of carrots or other items, how do you turn that into something else that you or your family members might want to eat? And then how do we rescue what's left? So particularly at large scale events like Jazz and Ribs Fest, our arenas and sports and convention areas, when there is food that is still edible, how is it rescued and then diverted and given to people that have food insecurity? We have a high amount of food insecure people here in the region, which means people do not have enough food to eat, and we're throwing away perfectly good food. So we partner with organizations like Columbus Food Rescue and Local Matters on that, and we are working to develop additional policies and programs to educate residents on how to utilize the tools that are currently available.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I want
Go
to
ahead.
follow up on
Yeah,
that. Is there anything in our Columbus Health Department and their regulations that seem to hurt this particular initiative? Because the latter thing that you mentioned, and I may have been under the, incorrect presumption from experiences that I had in the past, where, if you had some type of reception and there's half a tray of whatever left over, that, thinking in certain segments of the community is that you were required by law actually to throw that away. Like a catering company would not take it back, or, or whomever.
Yep.
And it was, so supposedly it was something with the health department said that you could not do that, or they discouraged it or something.
That's a great question, Councilmember Beatty. So recent federal law changes have actually made it easier for individuals and companies to donate, as long as there is no known problem with that food and someone hasn't eaten that food, like it's not off someone's plate. There is no liability for those individuals or entities or organizations to donate that food, because it is presumed that they were doing it for good reason. We actually work very closely with Columbus Public Health and the Columbus and Franklin County Local Food Action Board, which is a joint city and county board, which helps us as part of that to reduce food waste. And so we worked with them. We actually worked with our health inspectors and worked with them at Jazz and Ribs Fest when they went around to educate the food vendors there to say, this is perfectly acceptable and legal. Here's the language. There's no liability for you to donate this. And coming from those health inspectors really helps. We also work with the Ohio Restaurant Association, which I believe is now the Ohio Hospitality Association. They've changed their name, but we work well with them and their Central Ohio restaurants and restaurant owners who also want to be part of this, because sometimes there are, if you have a pizza shop, like Mikey's Late Night Slice is a great partner here, where they have extra pizza at the end of the night. They're not going to sell it the next day. It's perfectly good pizza. It can be rescued and donated and given to entities that might need that food. And so it's really an education piece. How do we educate those venues, those restaurants, and those caterers that are making food at larger quantities so that they can get those to the right people and get that food distributed to people that need it.
And you mentioned some group, Columbus Food Rescue. Is that an organization or something?
Yeah. Columbus Food Rescue is a program of Local Matters, which is a nonprofit here, and we do a lot of partnership with them. They have staff. They also have a Transform Kitchen, where they have 2 full-time chefs that take raw ingredients that are rescued, and they convert those and turn those into meals that can easily be heated up or eaten cold. and given to people that have food insecurity. So it's able to take food scraps or things that, let's say you have a pallet of beets. When you go to food drop-offs and like a food donation, you might be given a box of raw ingredients that you don't know how to cook or you have time to cook because you're working 2 jobs, or it's an ingredient that might be you're unfamiliar with. The Transform Kitchen is actually able to rescue that food before it goes to the landfill, turn it into something like soup or salads or casseroles that someone can just heat up or eat cold and be redistributed to them. So that's Rose Kitchen. It's a program of Local Matters and the Columbus Food Rescue Program.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And that education is real. I think even in our first year kind of being in office, we were pushing food rescue to our colleagues. Obviously, we host a number of events here at City Hall. There's always usually food left over. That was something we didn't want to end up in the landfill. It really took educating other council offices and other departments within the city to say, this is an option that is out there that exists that actually helps us achieve our climate action plan goals by diverting food instead of sending it to the landfill. But education is always the key. And I want to go back to Tim, just related to recycling. Can you just speak to some of the ways the division is working towards increasing the amount of recycling going to be processed? Are there campaigns that we're doing? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, certainly. Great question, Councilmember Weiss. So we do a lot of different educational side of this, and some of the things we're doing now, we always go into the schools. We continue an education program, as does SWACO. We work in coordination trying to make sure the big thing we try to coordinate with SWACO and do a great job with them is we want to make sure our messaging is consistent, because while we are in the city of Columbus, a lot of residents move throughout the region throughout their life. So they're living in different communities, but they're still in Central Ohio. So we want to make sure the messaging stays consistent no matter where they live throughout Central Ohio. So we work with SWACO to make sure our messaging on recycling is consistent. And that's why having the MRF here, the recycling facility for Rumpke, is tremendous value to our community, because we are able to recycle materials that a lot of communities aren't, and glass is one of them that a lot of people don't take. So educating our residents through the elementary school, middle school, high school, through our programs, that's one of the key ways we do it, but also educating them through our partners here at SWACO, where they reach out to a lot of the multifamily facilities that live in, that reside here in Columbus, because we only service the residential structures of Columbus, whereas the private haulers are doing the commercial. So they're generating a lot of trash in Columbus that we, as in the Division of Refuse, are not handling. So that's where SWACO is critical, because we want to make sure they're working on those issues in conjunction with what we're trying to do on the residential side. We're also doing some the multifamily recycling project, where we're allowing and encouraging multifamily units to do some recycling. SWACO's got a very abundant resource there as well on those areas. And just going door to door, we've done several campaigns where we've gone door to door. We just completed a study here in the city where we did heavy marketing, and we just got those results last week of 1,500 homes we went to with heavy campaigning, and 500 of those homes showed a increase in recycling through that education. So a third of the homes is pretty impressive when you really talk about the data of education, getting someone to open something, read something, acknowledge something, and then actually respond to that. So we're doing a lot of different door-to-door type things. We're doing targeted areas. We feel like one of the areas we've tried to expand upon is more of the ambassador program, where you get somebody in the neighborhood that really takes on that cause and becomes our conduit. One of the challenges we have in the city is, as you're aware, we do not bill for refuse services. It's in the general fund. So we do not know when residents move in and out of the properties, because they don't have to sign up for service. So we service structures, not the individual residents. We don't know who lives in that. So when they turn over, we don't necessarily know that someone new moved in. So how do we educate somebody? We didn't know that they're new. We've been servicing that house for 30 years. We don't know when someone moves in and out. So that's where that ambassador concept is someone that lives in that neighborhood would know who moves in and out, and they would go over and provide that information on how to recycle, what to recycle, how to dispose of properly, and all those things. So those are the areas we're working hard on.
I appreciate that. And we're going to shift to Swaco shortly, but I do have one question, just because we're going to talk about the lifespan of the landfill itself. But what are the implications for residents? Let's say 35, 36 years from now, that landfill is closed. What does that look like for the city of Columbus as well as for the residents who live here?
Yeah, so I'll answer first for the city, and then Director Lombardi can answer. From the city standpoint, our challenge is right now that cost of disposal is based on a lot of things, and location is one of them. So if that landfill were to fill up and they had to go somewhere else to dispose of that, our transportation costs would be exorbitant, continue to rise, which would become a fiscal challenge for everybody, and with the services we currently have and offer at the city, where we don't charge individually for trash, recycling, yard waste. We have no individual charges for those. Those would become more and more challenging as a result of that landfill. That's a direct impact to our residents and our city, obviously our city budget and finances if that occurs. So we have a lot of impetus to make sure that we extend that life of that landfill as long as we can. And I'll defer to Director Lombardi on the impact to the region.
All right, Joe, we set a super high bar for you, so hopefully this presentation is good. But appreciate you being here. Obviously, Joe Lombardi from Swaco, welcome back to City Hall.
Thank you. Thank
Floor is
you.
yours.
Thank you, Chairman Weiss and Council Member Beatty, for allowing us to speak this evening at the Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee hearing. Excuse me. Like you said, I'm going to speak from a Franklin County district perspective, which includes 41 communities, including our largest customer is Columbus. As you said, I'm Joe Lombardi, the Executive Director of Swaco, and I'm joined today by Scott Perry, who serves as the Assistant Executive Director, and Hannah Greer-Brown, the Director of Communications. Just real quick, Swaco is the solid waste district for all of Franklin County, and we own and operate the landfill, 2 transfer stations, and our programs team provides educational, financial, and technical assistance to 41 communities, schools, and businesses. We do value the partnership that we have with the City of Columbus on a number of waste reduction and reuse and diversion programs that Tim talked about, and we were able to share an update today on Central Ohio's sustainability efforts. Let me start by saying that we're pretty proud that the landfill tonnage remains relatively flat despite the amount of growth that's happening right now in Central Ohio. Recycling is occurring and it's strong. And the number of people that are composting seems to keep growing each day. So the food waste discussion that you're having is really near and dear to our hearts, because we're seeing more and more people do this. There are so many environmental and economic benefits to reducing our reliance on the landfill. And in just the past year, residents brought more than 132 tons of recyclables to Swaco's Recycling Convenience Center, which is located on Jackson Pike. And that doesn't include what Tim talked about, of the material that was coming to the city's 2 sites. 145 local businesses worked with Swaco to start recycling programs. The Environmental Task Crimes Force supported 54 criminal investigations for illegal dumping, and 3,500 vehicles visited household hazardous waste event, making those items safely disposed. However, there's a heck of a lot more that we can do and we can accomplish. For example, the average Central Ohio home only recycles 40% of what they can, meaning that the majority of our homes' recyclables are currently still coming to the landfill. Swaco is focused on changing that and appreciates the City of Columbus's participation in both Recycle Right program and Save More Than Food. Together, we're increasing access to recycling information so that families and residents can take action to reduce the reliance on the landfill and help to increase our residential recycling rates beyond where they are today. Preventing food waste is another big issue and a big focus for us. We estimate that Central Ohioans spend about $2,000 every year on food that is never eaten. That's $2,000 a year that is never eaten. In fact, food waste is the single largest category of material arriving at the landfill each day, nearly 1 million pounds of it. A lot of that food is thrown away can be leftovers. I don't know about you, but I'm a leftover king. I like a leftover hamburgers, a Salisbury steak the next day is what I always say. But SWACO has a Save More Than Food program, which is helping families to get creative with leftovers by repurposing them into other meals and save local families money on their grocery bills. Save More Than Food also provides guidance on the best way to store foods so that they stay fresh as long as possible. And for all those food scraps that can't be eaten, our community is home to 30 total food waste drop-off sites, including the 9 that Tim talked about here in the city of Columbus, where those scraps are turned into nutrient-rich, valuable compost. SWACO will continue to support all these legacy programs and looks forward to working with the city to connect even more residents with those resources. But we're pretty excited at SWACO because this year we launched Project Greenprint, which is an action plan to move our district even further along. Greenprint will focus on reuse and waste reduction because these activities generate greater reward for our community and the environment than just recycling alone. One such Greenprint activity is Choose to Reuse, a public education campaign that helps to connect folks with information on where they can rent instead of buy, shop secondhand, and repurpose no longer needed goods into something new and useful. We'll also continue to advance our work around food waste prevention, including shifting our focus to piloting some infrastructure for local composting abilities. And we are developing new programs for hard-to-recycle items, such as mattresses and textiles, such as the current pilot we are conducting to recycle clothing that's too ripped, stained, or soiled to be donated. Many of these activities will require us to pursue new initiatives, technologies, and partnerships, and we look forward to keeping the city and our other community partners updated and determine how Greenprint can help sustainability objectives for you. Finally, I would be remiss if I didn't share that SWACO recently launched a podcast called Waste Ed, which is produced monthly and is a great way to stay abreast of all the sustainability innovations and activities being worked on in Central Ohio. I just said recently to some of our staff, we have one body, one earth, and one landfill, and we need to take care of all of them. Thank you for your support, and this is important work and all that you're doing to make living, learning, and doing business in the city of Columbus green. Thank you, and I'll take any questions you may have.
Well, appreciate you being here and for all the amazing work that you and your team are doing. I have to ask the question because it seems a little counterintuitive, right? That someone who makes revenue from waste tonnage is working so hard to reduce the amount of tonnage actually coming to the landfill. Can you just discuss why that work is so important and, why it's so hard to kind of expand these diversion Can you discuss why your work is so hard to expand diversion practices and keep tonnage flat?
Yeah, it's a great question, and you're absolutely right. It does sound counterintuitive, but our goal and our mission is to provide transformational programs and safe disposal of the waste stream. But we would love never to see another truck come into the landfill and that everybody is recycling and that nothing has come to the landfill. And the reason why it's so important to us is because, like I just said, we only have one landfill here in Central Ohio. In 2016, we were approved by the Ohio EPA to expand that landfill, which will give us until 2062. But that was based on 2016 population and numbers and data from the 2016. We continue to bring things to that landfill. That 2062 is going to get a little smaller as we talk about. And as Tim indicated, closing a landfill does create a lot of problems for a community. Number one is the cost that it will be for haulers that have to take it out of the district into another county potentially. Most of our communities, if not all of them, their residents do pay for their waste and recycling. And so that cost would go up for all of our residents in those communities. And the cost to the city of Columbus, as Tim mentioned, would be heard on the general fund, because the more that has to travel, the more expensive that's going to get. So that's why we work so hard every day to try to educate and partner with different communities to divert material from the landfills, just to protect that. That is a community asset, and we're a community partner, and we feel that that is a community asset, and we want to take care of that asset for everybody, the 1.3 million people that live here in Franklin County.
Definitely appreciate that. And just kind of given that conversation about the useful life of the landfill, obviously now with the projected growth that we're seeing in the region, do we have an updated number, right, in terms of what that life looks like?
No, we don't have an updated number. We are working with a consultant that has done many studies for us, and one of the things that I have asked them to look at is if we were to look today in the current situation in 2025, where does that 2062 number, where are we at? Are we still at 2062? And one of the things that I'm really interested in is doing basically a per capita number, where if population is going up 10%, but our tonnage coming in still remains flat, that means not only are we doing our jobs, but folks to my right are doing their jobs, and the folks in all of our suburban communities are doing their job by diverting more material from that landfill.
Appreciate that. Well, we'll definitely be waiting with bated breath to see what that report says, because I do use that number all the time when I talk about recycling and the importance of moving in that direction. One more question from me, and then I'll kick it to Councilmember Beatty if he has any questions. But I know your team has been working with the Apartment Association to remove barriers to initiating recycling services. Can you talk a little bit about how those efforts have been going?
Yeah, so we continue to work with the apartment associations to figure out ways to address probably one of the most complex issues we have in recycling, and that is apartments and multifamily units. I don't think it's unique to Central Ohio. I think it's unique in all cities. And currently, part of our program and the pilot that we're working with the city of Columbus, but part of our program as well is we will reimburse up to 6 months of hauling services, up to $2,500. And then we'll also provide educational signage and materials to those property owners that they can educate, and we can also help them develop a program. The issue sometimes becomes, is there a local, unique code or process that unit would have to go through, whether you're in Hilliard or Dublin. It could be different than in Westerville or even in Columbus. So we continue to work with them to figure out ways that we can at least try to get some programming going on in some of these locations, and then learn from those, and then try to work with our other communities and seeing if we can help them as well.
I mean, obviously a timely topic for Columbus and a region that is looking to densify and encourage more multi-unit buildings. Cracking that understanding of how we educate the importance of recycling to those residents is going to be key to kind of keeping that, landfill still in existence.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree that, and I think that's one of the most important things that we can do at SWACO is to just continue to educate folks, continue to provide any kind of assistance, whether it's financial through our grants or through our container loan program, anything that we can do to just get one more person to do the right thing. If I can convince 1.3 million people to do it, it'd be a miracle. But if I can pick them off one at a time, I think we can make a difference in Central Ohio.
Appreciate that. Councilmember Beatty, did you have any questions? Perfect. All right. Well, before we move into the next portion of the hearing, I just want to ask anybody in the audience if they would like to speak about waste diversion, if there was anything that kind of piqued their interest. But seeing none, I think we're good. So Tim, as well as Joe, as in teams, appreciate you all being here and kind of speaking to some of the programs that are happening in the city. It's exciting to see this work occurring. It's exciting to see folks get excited about food waste and recycling, right? But the more we talk about it, the better it will be because more folks will kind of pick up on the right way to do things, and hopefully we all benefit from that in the long term. So. With that being said, we're going to move into the sustainable building practices portion of the hearing. I heard from residents during our zone-in gallery events and that residents want to make sure our city is thinking about green space, resource conservation, and air quality as we grow. Today we'll be learning about what programs are currently available in Columbus, from Columbus experts in Columbus on sustainability. So next, I would like to ask everyone to turn their attention to the TV screens in front of the room for a virtual presentation from the Smart Surfaces Coalition, an organization committed to the rapid, cost-effective global adoption of smart surfaces to enable cities to decrease urban heat, save billions of dollars, reduce flooding and mold risk, and strengthen urban livability, resilience, and equity. Online, we have Bill Updike, the program manager, to tell us about the coalition's work and their Cities for Smart Surfaces program, the tools and data coming out of that program, and the economic benefits to climate-resilient building practices. Bill, thank you for being here and for the work that you're doing. The coalition is doing some amazing research. I know my office has truly enjoyed the peer networking group that is hosted by the coalition. My staff has learned a lot about different practices out there that we would love to bring to the city of Columbus. But let me kick it to you to take the floor.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chairman Weiss. Really appreciate the invite. I was going to say that it's so hot here in DC that I wish I was there in person with you all in Columbus. And then I looked up the temperature in Columbus and actually hotter there than
We
here
got a
in
heat
DC.
advisory
So
coming. I don't know if that's not working today.
yeah. So it is great to be with you all, at least virtually, and appreciate the time. Assuming we can see these slides here up on the screen, and if not, maybe somebody could let me know. But yeah, the Smart Services Coalition is a nonprofit organization. It's a coalition of more than 40 groups that are really focused around transforming urban infrastructure surfaces to mitigate things like urban heat island effect and stormwater flooding, and create cooler, healthier, and more resilient cities by doing so. And our premise is really focused around the economics of this work and on the cost effectiveness of what we're talking about. Anyone that's been tracking the projections of weather and heat and other things out to 2050 is familiar with these types of maps. There will be significant increases in flooding. Unfortunately, we're seeing some of the early impacts of that with the very frequent 1 in 1,000 year storms that seem to be happening much more frequently lately than they used to. And, when you look at Ohio Ohio is one of those states where there's going to be significant increases in flooding events. And unfortunately, the same is true for extreme heat. There's a large swath of the country in the Midwest that will be seeing significant increases, including some of the largest increases in heat, out to the middle of the century. And already we're seeing that, of course, in the last couple of decades. So unfortunately, you get the double whammy of increased flooding and increased heat. And so our work is really focused around transforming surface infrastructure to mitigate for those two particular problems. And even beyond that, the urban heat island effect is a reality of the way that we historically designed and built cities with dark and impervious surfaces. And, that effect can lead to, upwards of 5 to 9 degrees Fahrenheit hotter temperatures in urban areas versus rural areas. and up to even double digits and even in the 20s sometimes in terms of degree temperatures at nighttime, which is when it gets really dangerous, when there are multiple day extreme heat events, is where, and people can't cool down at night, for example, if they either don't have air conditioning, they can't afford air conditioning, or, they are unhoused or have other issues happening. And so those are the days and nights that get quite dangerous. And we also know from our modeling that this urban heat island effect is not distributed equally. There is a unequal distribution of urban heat island in low-income areas in particular, and this is sort of writ large across the board among cities around the country. And some of these neighborhoods can be upwards of 15 to 20 degrees hotter during the day than surrounding rural communities. So this is a problem of equity. This is a problem of extreme heat. So what are smart surfaces? Sometimes when we say that term, people think that we're talking about AI or, complex technologies and widgets and, all of those types of things. But really, what we're talking about are proven solutions to transform surface infrastructure in urban areas to mitigate for heat and stormwater flooding. We're talking about cool surfaces. We're talking about green infrastructure, trees, rain gardens, bioswales, green stormwater infrastructure. We're talking about permeable paving. We're talking about energy generating surfaces like solar PV, for example. And we also look at embodied carbon in materials as well. There really wasn't a term that combined all of those different surface types under one rubric. And so that was why we coined this term expression, smart surfaces, to kind of include transformations of all these different types. And so we have created what we call the Cities for Smart Surfaces program. There was some initial modeling work that was done by the 5 cities that are here in gray. And that work expanded into a more comprehensive program, Cities for Smart Surfaces program, amongst the cities and metro areas that are here in green. And we are currently undergoing and underway on that project. We are 2 years into this new program with these 10 metropolitan areas here in green. Some of that early analysis in a city like Baltimore, we did benefit cost analysis for the city, and it showed upwards of 5 to 1 to 10 to 1 benefit cost ratio, upwards of 5 degrees peak summer temperature reduction if these transformations were to happen in the city, millions of tons of CO2e reduced and billions of dollars in financial benefits. And that image on the right there is just a snapshot of our earlier version of our benefit cost analysis tool that we provide to our cities that we're working with. This story around the economics and around the impact in terms of stormwater mitigation, in terms of heat mitigation, was compelling enough that the council member with whom we were working in Baltimore has now issued a series of 5 pieces of legislation just in the last 2 years connected to smart surfaces. It started with a pool roof ordinance back in June of 2023, and since then the city's passed legislation looking into the creation of Climate Resilience Authority, a number of bills connected to trees and tree infrastructure, and most recently an urban meadows bill looking to convert 100 acres of land that's underutilized in the city of Baltimore into urban meadows. So this more expansive program that we are foundation funded to do this work, includes 15 funded project partners across 5 different working groups. So we have a data working group. We're doing direct investment in communities, doing smart surface interventions at churches and with community-based organizations. We have a federal funding group where we're helping our cities apply for federal grants and state grants. And we have a policy working group where we're helping cities to formulate ideas about policy interventions and provide technical assistance there. And we have a health group that is formed with American Lung Association, American Public Health Association, and the Harvard School of Public Health is doing some really interesting bespoke research for us mining 911 data and Medicare and Medicaid data during extreme heat events in order to determine what the real impact is on human health related to these events in our 10 metro areas. So all of this work is, the foundation of all this work is based on very high resolution micrometeorological modeling that we do for the project. Is just a sample of some heat modeling that was done by our partner Alto Stratus. And that really forms the foundation of our work. And in addition to just the heat modeling work, we model what the cooling potential is for smart surface interventions, these cool surfaces, these permeable surfaces, these green surfaces. And all of that work feeds into a geospatial tool, which has some very advanced geospatial layers in it. But I think the most powerful part of this tool is that it has a query function to the point where you could analyze a bunch of different categories that are in the layers. Say you wanted to look at parts of the city that have the lowest tree canopy, that have the highest rates of asthma, that have the highest energy burden amongst the residents, that might have other characteristics. You can do this query to figure out those parts of the city that really are in most need of some of these different types of interventions. So you can really get to that data-driven planning, policy and program development in a very sophisticated way. So this is the geospatial part of what we deliver in terms of the tools. Then I mentioned before, we have our benefit cost analysis tool that we develop. I need to change the image here because we just launched our 1.0 version of this tool, and it's quite more sophisticated and than this beta version that is on the screen here. But we just launched that this past week. So a lot of advances here, and like I mentioned in the Baltimore example, the economics of this work makes a ton of sense, and that's really part of our pitch, is telling the story about the benefits from a financial perspective, from a resilience perspective, from a health perspective. And then the final major tool that we've created, and the first two tools right now are not publicly available, only to the city staff in the 10 cities and all of the 840 cities that are in the metro areas of those 10 places. They will eventually be made publicly available, but for now they are, they're being used internally by the cities. But this third tool is currently publicly available. It's the Smart Surfaces Policy Tracker tool. This is a searchable database of almost 2,000 policies in all 50 states. All the city policies, the county policies, state policies in all those 50 states related to smart surface interventions, and you can search by all sorts of different categories in order to figure out, what are some of your peers doing in this space in terms of policy. But equally important on this policy tracker tool, we have a best practices section where we have model ordinances that we've developed, policy justification memos that we've developed, and other policy guidance documents in order to curate some of this. If you don't have time to look at the 20 cool roof ordinances around the country or in your region, we have a model cool roof ordinance, for example, that you can go straight to, and there's best practice stuff in there. So trying to make all of this as user friendly and as possible in order to get to data-driven policy making at a more advanced level. And just to talk maybe quickly about some of the benefits, I mentioned some of the economic benefits when I talked about the Baltimore work, but to dive in a little bit deeper, there are significant energy efficiency benefits for smart surfaces. You can see cool roofs, 27% peak cooling reductions, cool walls up to 27% in energy savings. There's significant benefits for green roofs in terms of energy savings, both in the heating season and in the cooling season. The modeling shows that there are energy savings up to 25% for strategic tree planting. So thinking about where those trees are and what types they are, east, south, west facing areas of homes and other buildings. There's more advanced technology that's coming out in this year and in the next year. These passive rated cooling films and panels, which are quite remarkable in the technology. They're essentially radiating solar energy back out into space in a certain, what they call the atmospheric window. And they've actually modeled, if you put enough of these films and coatings around the world, you could completely offset global warming, which is quite fascinating to think at. So there's some cutting edge things happening, as well as the stuff that's been proven for many decades. And then combined surfaces, there's these benefits. If you combine a cool roof with solar, it helps to make the solar power more efficient. And the same thing is true for green roofs. And one of the things that people are very concerned about is the cost of peak electricity demand, in those extreme heat days. It's very expensive for the utilities to power up those power plants to meet peak demand. And the research shows that for every 1 degree C or 1.8 F, temperature increases can increase peak electricity load up to 4.6%, depending on the climate zone and area on the day, as well as total electricity consumption too. And so, our modeling shows we can, reduce citywide temperatures, upwards of 5 degrees more, and then even higher in some of those neighborhoods that have the highest urban heat island. And so there's this potential to reduce peak demand, and into the double digits. And that's significant cost savings for ratepayers and significant resilience gains in terms of the potential for brownouts and blackouts and the risk and danger of those things happening during an extreme heat event are, quite high. And that's when there's the biggest risk to health as well. If there are electricity brownouts and blackouts and there's an extreme heat event, is where it gets even more dangerous than normal. There are traffic safety and Vision Zero benefits to these strategies, rain garden bump outs and roundabouts and permeable pavers in intersections and cool pavement coatings for intersections and things like bus lanes and bike lanes. Instead of using a traditional paint coating, use a cool paint version. It's going to cost you the same, but you're going to get this added benefit of urban heat island mitigation. But it helps to, these things, in addition to doing all that work of energy savings and urban heat island mitigation and stormwater mitigation, they also can help to make the streets safer for people, bicyclists and pedestrians and cars too. Everybody benefits from more traffic safety. And so some summary of some of the economics of this work. So when we summarized all the 10 core cities and the 10 metro areas, in terms of what the economics of this look like, you're seeing health benefits in the core cities of 7.6 billion collectively, infrastructure benefits close to 60 billion. This is over time, over a 25-year period. Energy benefits on the order of 3 billion, and then other ecosystem service benefits on the order of 13 billion. Many millions of metric tons of CO2e saved. And tens of thousands of metric tons of air pollution mitigated as well. And on the stormwater side, the modeling shows if you are incorporating a reasonable amount of green infrastructure and tree planting, you could see collectively across those 10 core cities upwards of 234 billion gallons of stormwater reductions. And that also means more water flowing into ground table and, less chances of having issues with your groundwater. And, then we also added, up the benefits across all the 10 metro areas, the larger kind of suburbs and the core cities included, and seeing significant benefits in terms of the billions there. And there are other benefits of smart surfaces as well that we have not yet quantified, although we're moving towards quantifying some of these, like the impact on tourism, for example. But, increase in property values, increase in job creation and good quality jobs, increase in exercise and improvements in health, and deterrence of crime is actually, there's good research talking about that. Like I mentioned, the tourism impact, wildlife benefits, certainly healthcare costs, and lost worker productivity reductions, which are super helpful as well. And then just general health and well-being amongst communities. And so significant benefits of the work that we're doing. Here's for the good of the order. We'll share these slides for sure, and folks can click on these links and look at some online resources about the work that we're doing and the benefits therein. And yeah, that's it from me. I really appreciate the time and love to hear any questions that you all might have, or the audience, and look forward to engaging further in the future as well. Thank you so much.
Well, first, Bill, thank you for kind of walking through the presentation and some of the work that you all are doing. It's really exciting. I am concerned that you're going to send me down a rabbit hole on this policy tracker where I'm just looking at legislation after legislation, but that seems like fun for the weekend. So we'll look forward to that. I do want to go back. One of the first graphics that you showed appeared to show our region seeing a large increase in flood risk. And I think flooding is at the top of everyone's mind, kind of given the tragedies that occurred in Texas with all of the flooding that was happening over the last few weeks. Can you just elaborate a little bit on those projections and highlight the strategies that could be utilized to lower the risk of extreme flood damage to our communities?
Yeah, absolutely. There's multiple sources of flooding. And this played itself out, of course, last year in North Carolina, tragically in Georgia, and then this year again in multiple places, including Texas. But the benefit here is that these strategies, in particular, the green infrastructure strategies, your rain gardens, your bioswales, your tree planting programs, your permeable paving programs can deeply help to solve for flooding issues in terms of the ability to take that stormwater and process it and slow it down, and can do so in a very cost-effective fashion. When we look at some of the economics of this, it's less expensive in a lot of ways, depending on the design, to install a rain garden instead of new paving, for example. And over time, certainly life cycle benefits there. Permeable paving, may have a higher upfront cost, but has substantial life cycle cost benefits because of, these certain types of permeable pavers in particular, have a 35, 40-year lifespan. They can be moved aside when there's, underground utility issues and directly put back. And so that helps to alleviate some of the headaches that happen when, roads get paved and then immediately torn up to, fix some utility infrastructure underneath there. So there's all these ancillary benefits. But the good news story is, like I said, just for our core cities alone, that the modeling shows even at a fairly small and certainly reasonable amount of interventions. I mean, that's not maximizing everything. The numbers that I showed you, these are sort of reasonable amounts of interventions. That's around 350 billion gallons of stormwater just in those core cities alone, and certainly in the metro areas significantly higher than that. And so just billions and billions of gallons that are not going into the creeks, into the rivers, and making the flooding even worse, the riverine flooding even worse. And the benefit of this is twofold, right? Or it's multiple fold, really. Those strategies also help to mitigate for urban heat island and extreme heat. So you're getting that dollar of investments giving you $5 to $10 of value instead of just a 1-for-1 that you might get if you just paved a road with asphalt, right? So there's all sorts of ancillary benefits as well, but these are solvable problems. We've created this problem the way we've designed cities in the past, and we can now solve for them in a cost-effective manner.
And I appreciate you walking through that. I mean, obviously, we are at a pivotal moment here in the city of Columbus because we have population growth occurring, but we're also incentivizing higher density buildings and at the same time investing in transit corridors. So being able to kind of manage that stormwater that is going to come as we are paving more parts of the city is going to be key And I think having standards that incentivize and require kind of folks to kind of move in that direction just saves us all money and headaches in the long term. But it's always a challenge to get folks to get there.
Yeah, I mean, getting it right this time around is so important because, if we don't get it right, we're going to be causing more flooding, more problems, more suffering, more extreme heat, greater negative impact on human health and reductions in resilience for the cities. So this is our moment. We know better now than we did 100 years ago, and this is our moment to do it right this time.
And just one quick question, or one last question, and then I'll let you go. Can you just talk a little bit about any challenges you have seen cities face as they work to kind of implement these smart surfaces into development plans?
Yeah, I always sort of say that our biggest challenge is inertia and siloing. People have been doing the same thing for decades and decades, and that's kind of our path as a human species to just keep going down this path, even though it's causing more flooding and more heat and more suffering. So the inertia is a piece of that, and then the siloing is another big piece. Agencies with infrastructure projects, there has to be a collective ownership of the outcomes for those things. And if you have agencies that are siloed from each other and aren't communicating with each other, you're not going to get the best outcome from those projects. And so that siloing impact is also one of the biggest challenges I think we face. The numbers are there. When you really look at the numbers, they're there, and I think part of it too is shifting the thinking and really focusing around the life cycle benefits. The life cycle cost benefits would be a real game-changing transformation. Instead of just focusing on first cost, there's certainly plenty of things that are, the same or lower first cost of these different intervention types, but there are some things that do have a additional first cost, but substantial life cycle cost benefits. And so thinking that through and being strategic about that is really important.
Well, Bill, appreciate you presenting today and all the work that the coalition is doing. We're excited to continue to kind of collaborate and partner with you all, and definitely looking forward to continuing this relationship going on. So thank you again for taking some time.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just to wrap up, we are getting ready to close out this phase of our work with the current 10 metro areas, hoping to add another 20 cities and metro areas in the next phase. And we have been gathering letters of interest from various cities around the country that we're interested in working with. And, we do have a letter of interest from Columbus. And so hopefully we're able to raise the foundation funding. We bring these resources to the cities at no cost. It's all foundation funded. So hopefully we're able to raise that foundation funding in order to bring those 20 cities in, and hopefully we can bring you all into the fold as well and provide you with these valuable tools. So really appreciate the time and look forward to connecting in the future as well.
Well, thank you so much, and we're excited. So appreciate you taking some time to kind of walk us through that and for all the work that you all are doing. So next, we are going to hear from the City of Denver's Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resilience. Presenting today is Courtney Anderson, the Director of Buildings and Homes, and Derek Valenti, Building Performance Program Administrator. And if I ruined anyone's last name, please feel free to correct.
Thank you all. Can you hear me all right? Okay, great. Let me try to screen share.
So Courtney, I have to ask, the weather in DC is hot, the weather in Columbus is hotter. How are you guys doing in Denver?
It's actually not horrible today. We've been like close to the hundreds lately, but today I think we're only at like 85, 90. It's about to rain, which is not very common here. So, let's see.
We have some humidity, which we're not used to out here.
That's true. Yeah. I actually lived in Ohio for a couple years, but It was Cincinnati, so sorry it was in Columbus. Sorry, you can't see my screen, can you?
We can.
Oh, why would it? Okay.
There we go.
All right. Well, thank you all. Courtney Anderson with the City and County of Denver. We'll try to get through this pretty quickly so that you all have time for questions here. So we are the Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resiliency. We're going to say CASR for short, since that's a bit of a mouthful. We were established in.
You want to make this full screen? Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're right. I'm sorry, everyone. There we go.
Perfect.
We were established in 2020 as an agency, so we are fairly new. We work with our community to make sure that we're addressing climate change and the pollutants and waste that contribute to climate change. And we focus in our most vulnerable communities. We have a fair amount of teams within CASR. And so Derek and myself are in the high performance buildings and homes team. But we do have other teams like the zero waste and circular economy, energy transition, adaptation resiliency, environmental justice, workforce. So we really do cover a lot of different scopes as it relates to the climate crisis. We are unique too because we do have the Climate Protection Fund. And so that's a voter initiative that was passed that provides our agency about $40 million a year to address climate action. And we strive to implement at least half of that funding in our most climate vulnerable neighborhoods to address the most urgent concerns of the climate crisis. And today we're going to focus, again, a little bit more on the buildings and homes side. If there's questions on the other teams, we can certainly work to get you those answers. But in Denver, we have 66% of our greenhouse gas emissions coming from buildings and homes. So 21% on the residential single family side, 45% in commercial and multifamily. And because of those high greenhouse gas emissions, we have some goals to really try to tackle that. And so for new buildings, our goals are to be zero emissions by 2030. And for all existing and new buildings, zero emissions by 2040. So we took a couple high impact regulations to bring to this presentation today. First is the Energized Denver Ordinance that my colleague Derek will go through here in more detail in a minute. And that is our building performance policy for larger existing buildings. The middle that you see here is the Denver Energy Code. And so that is our policy tool for a lot of the new construction work we do, as well as additions in existing buildings too. So that has a baseline of a 2021 IUCC, so the national code, plus Denver specific amendments. And then we have something called the Green Buildings Ordinance, which has a kind of more menued approach to selecting what is best for new and existing buildings to tackle different sustainability related items like green space, water quality, solar. And so I'll go into those second two in just high level detail, and we'll focus mostly on the Energized Denver Ordinance today. So for what we call the 2022 Denver Energy Code, these are just some examples of our high impact amendments that we made to the baseline code. So for commercial and multifamily, we don't allow gas furnaces or water heaters, and that started last year. And that's for, again, just commercial and multifamily units. We've also updated our energy modeling paths and our prescriptive path, so like a kind of checklist path through the code to really align with our energy goals. And then on the residential side, so the single family townhome side, there's a provision that requires either 50% renewables or additional efficiency or electrification. So it's kind of an option, menu of option there to help single family progress. And then similar to the commercial side, we updated our energy modeling paths and our prescriptive path to align with our energy goals. And so what we're seeing as a result of passing the policy from the Denver Energy Code is that we are seeing a real uptake in all electric properties. And we define the properties by not running gas lines to those properties. So although we only regulate space and water heating, say in the commercial side and multifamily side, we are seeing projects actually just go all electric, since that is making more sense for those projects. As well, on the residential side, the more kind of electric preferred paths that we've incorporated into the policy, into the code, has also resulted in quite a number of single family all electric properties. And we are also seeing on the affordable housing piece that they are pursuing the all electric property path and using the more progressive performance path for their energy modeling through the code. So we are pretty excited about the results we're seeing from the policy that passed technically in 2023, even though it's called the 2022. And then just briefly, the green buildings ordinance. So this was the third item on that slide from a little bit earlier. This is the kind of more menu approach. So it affects new and existing buildings that are over 25,000 square feet. So for a new building, you would have to follow this path at the time of construction. For existing buildings, it's the time of roof replacement. So it requires both of new and existing buildings to do a cool roof, and then selecting one of the other options that you see on the screen. So different combinations of green roof and green space, solar, different certifications, and it's quite detailed for your options for new buildings and for existing buildings. And so we've really seen a really good impact from this ordinance affecting the larger building stock in Denver. And then I'm going to pivot over to Energize Denver, and my colleague Derek will cover that.
Yeah, thanks. Awesome. Thanks so much for having us again. So I'm going to touch on Energize Denver itself. First, a little bit about its creation and the task force we did to create it. Sorry, I'm plugging into the charger. The goal is to implement building performance policy that includes energy efficiency improvements and strategic electrification of all existing buildings and homes, with that goal that Courtney said earlier of reaching net zero energy by 2040, as well as making sure the program improves health and equity outcomes, creates jobs, and drives climate solutions in buildings. A little bit about the structure of the task force itself. So we had 8 task force meetings starting January through August of 2021. Within that, we had many different working groups and side meetings. It was built on best practices and lessons learned from other cities that were also developing building performance standards at that time. Even though we were one of probably the top 10 building performance standards being designed and implemented in the early 2020 and 2021 years. One of the really important things is that our recommendations were developed with a racial equity lens, and then community engagement. So there was public surveys and input sessions where we wanted to make sure we were working with the community to design something that kept that final goal in mind, but also something achievable. So a little bit of the program overview. There's really 3 major sections of the ordinance. First is benchmarking. This, in a general way, is the way we track information from all of the buildings citywide. It's implemented by our Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resiliency, specifically focused for buildings 25,000 square feet and above, where they're required to submit their energy data every year to us. Second big one is the performance side, also implemented by our office. And that's 2 different main categories, which I'm going to touch on more as this kind of all goes on. But we have buildings 5 to 25,000 square feet, or just under 25,000 square feet, and a second program for buildings 25,000 square feet and over. And then the last portion is the electrification side. Courtney had mentioned some of it as well. And that is getting implemented by a different department than ours. It's the Community Planning and Development, CPD. That's responsible for implementing that. And that's applicable to all commercial and multifamily buildings with the goal of electrifying space and water heat upon system replacement. So first program we have that I wanted to touch on really quick is for buildings 5 to just under 25,000 square feet. We have what I would consider in general more straightforward requirements for it. So building owners can choose one of two compliance pathways. First is that they can certify that a minimum of 90% of the lighting load is provided by LED lighting, or the second one is that they are sourcing 20% of their energy needs from on or off-site renewables. And then within those two requirements, we have a lot more nuances to it that we've built to give people more time and extra considerations if they want to go an energy efficiency route. But the big thing is that table on the right. So we have 3 different compliance deadlines where they must achieve these goals. We're actually in our first compliance year right now for buildings 15,000 to just under 25,000 square feet, where they're required to comply. Another thing to note with this program is it's a one-time prove your compliance, and once they're in compliance, they're no longer required to report anything to the city and county. Versus what we call the larger building program for 25,000 square feet and up. It's has a little more complexity to it. We have the benchmarking requirement that they have to submit their annual energy benchmarking to us every year. Within that benchmarking report, we look at site EUI, so that's energy use intensity. The way that is defined is that's the total building's energy use divided by the gross square footage of the building. And that EUI is then our barometer for setting up what the target is going to be for the building itself. So when we set our original targets in 2020, we looked at Energy Star portfolio manager property types. We did an analysis of both local and nationwide data to figure out what an appropriate site energy use intensity target would be for those buildings, as well as kept it in line with what the goal of the overall ordinance is. And so we found that in order to achieve our goal of net zero energy by 2040, we need a 30% reduction in buildings energy use, 25,000 square feet and up, and that would get us a large portion of the way to that 2040 goal. And so with that, we have unique targets set for each building. And in the graph you have in front of us, we have an office building example where they have a final target of 48.3 that we require them to hit by 2032. But we also have an interim year in 2028 where we want them to be making progress towards that goal. Another thing to note is that in those what we call performance years, so 2028, 2032, we will be assessing if the buildings hit their score. And if they don't hit their score, we reserve the right to charge a penalty rate based on what we consider KBTU not achieved, or the amount of energy that they're missing their target by. We'll then charge, right now is 23 cents per KBTU not achieved for those buildings to try to hit those goals. So a little bit of lessons learned as we've started this ordinance to where we are today. We've gone through a couple of iterations of rules and technical guidance updates. One of the big changes is our initial messaging was really focused around the idea of avoiding penalties. We've really transitioned our pitch to the community as more of support and education, basically explaining that compliance is attainable. You just have to put the work in before we get to the penalties. Focusing on service providers. So service providers, contractors are the way we can provide the biggest splash in terms of the community, making sure that they're properly educated on our building requirements and the nuances we've developed within it. aligning with long-term planning. And so we originally had this year would have been the first interim target year for buildings. After doing a lot more community outreach, we figured that performing building upgrades takes a lot of time and planning, and we want building owners to account for that. And so instead of having a performance year this year, we want to put more focus on them building their plans. And that way, that's why we have our first interim target in 2028, as these building owners are starting to develop plans and explore what energy efficiency improvements they need. Last one is unique building conditions. We have specific property types that we've used, created initial targets with, but every building is unique. And so we've added a bunch of different considerations as well as financial standings within buildings to account for them and give them opportunities to explore different pathways within Energize Denver. I'm going to do my best to go through this slide super quick and just focus on kind of the broad things. As Courtney has mentioned, our department is funded through a climate protection fund tax. And so we have the ability, we have an outsourced third party that helps us administer the program and allows us to give additional technical support. And so we use Energy Star Portfolio Manager for our benchmarking, but we also have a portal for people to use that gets access to basically a one-stop shop for Energize Denver compliance situations. We have a call center that can provide coaching services. We're providing ongoing training for contractors and service providers. We do monthly office hours, compliance status reports. That's both emails and physical mailers we send out. We do typically do 2 physical mailers a year, plus mass comms through emails to each contact. We have an energy management tool online that helps people just start to understand the journey to compliance. And then the last one is financial assistance. So we can talk about things that we call it CPACE. It's probably known as PACE nationwide, different financing resources that people can take advantage of. Some program progress, I think I'm almost through. So benchmarking has been going on since 2017. And the first year we were about 75% in compliance. So that was 75% of 3,000 buildings submitting their information to us every year. In the past 2 years, we've achieved roughly 95+% in terms of buildings submitting proper information to us and getting us an understanding of where their buildings lie. Performance side. When the ordinance started, we had 15% of buildings in compliance. Today, now we have roughly about 44% of buildings in compliance with their first target and about 30%, just under it, in compliance with their final target 2032. So really over the last about 3 years, we've seen almost a doubling of the number of buildings that have hit compliance. Some numbers we're very proud of. We have, I believe this is my last slide, our Equity Priority Building Assistance Program. So we're really trying to do a bottom-up approach as a city. We want to make sure that we're helping what we consider equity priority buildings in the best way possible. And so we have some criteria where we'll qualify them. If they qualify, we have 3 tiers of service. First is what we call our kickoff call and benchmarking revision. If they keep going up in our tiers of qualifications, we can provide a virtual level 1 energy assessment. And then the highest level of qualification is free on-site ASHRAE level 2, as well as deeper project implementation and financial coaching for each of these buildings to help them build their pathway to compliance. And with that, I know we're a little bit over 10 minutes, but thank you all for giving us the time to talk about our programs.
No, thank you for the work that you all are doing, kind of setting an example for other cities to kind of follow the model of others who have kind of further along on their sustainability journey. So it's exciting to see all the work that you're doing. We even have residents who come down to City Hall to sing the praises of the work that is happening in Denver. And so we wanted to make sure we're able to kind of hear from you. I did have a couple questions just based on some of the stuff that you all presented. Obviously, when we talk about sustainable building practices, we often hear the concerns that creating sustainable building performance standards would increase the cost of housing at a time when we have an affordable housing shortage. However, you mentioned most of your newly constructed residential and multifamily affordable housing is mostly all electric and using performance pathways. Can you expand on what you've learned about affordable housing after this policy was put in place? And do you have any advice on how Columbus could emulate the same success Denver has realized around sustainable affordable housing development?
Yeah, great question. And I believe that was geared a little bit more towards the new construction, affordable housing piece. So I might take this question,
Sure.
Derek. So we created a policy that doesn't leave affordable housing behind. We don't want to have an exemption for affordable housing. They also need to be part of the solution, and have healthy environments. Indoor air quality is extremely important. And so when we talk about electrification, we're not talking about electric, baseboard heating. We're making sure that we have highly efficient requirements like heat pumps. And so we've really worked with the community through this process. And so Derek explained what the Energized Denver Task Force looked like. We had a very similar code committee to help us get to this place for a policy where we had affordable housing representatives at the table with our utility company, with architects and engineers and mechanical engineers, and to really get to right size our requirements. And so at this point, it just is making the progress, the numbers that we reviewed, it's just making sense for affordable housing to pursue this path. And again, they're going above what they need to do. They don't have to be all electric. We just have a space and water heating requirement. And so the policy is helping us see that they want to do this and it makes sense for those projects already. And so it was really a combination of making sure we got the policy right. We included the right stakeholders. And then after the policy passed, we made sure we had the resources and tools to help people understand those new requirements, since so much of what the end result is happens so early in the design process. So we wanted to make sure people were designing accurately to the code before they got too far down the line, and just making sure that we have those education and resources. And we are also doing pilot programs too to help become case studies for other examples in the city.
No, I appreciate that. And honestly, the amount of technical support, training, resources that you guys are providing should truly be commended, because it seems like you're going out of your way to make it the easiest to comply with these new standards by providing all that support. But I am curious, just costs associated with those supports. Do you have kind of a sense of what that's looking like annually for you all to provide that technical assistance?
So for the energy code side, that was pretty minimal cost, because it was updated after the policy, and those are a little bit more stagnant resources than the Energized Denver tools. And do you want to speak to the resources for the Energized Denver side? It's a little, we went through a lot today, and so there's there's the energy code side, and then there's an Energized Denver ordinance side that have different tools and resources to help with those policies.
You're right. If I talk budget numbers?
Yeah, go
Okay, cool.
ahead.
Yeah, I think initially when we started, we had about $5 million allocated to those different Energized Denver resources. That's building the platform out for us to be able to look at submission information. And then next was kind of starting to expand that a little bit more. We had a little bit of a separate fund focused for the EPB program itself, and that can get up to about $2 million that we're deciding how we stretch it out, make it work.
And the EPB is the equity.
Sorry, yeah, too much acronyms all the time. Equity priority building, so really our bottom-up approach, where we're paying for audits for these buildings and exploring financial resources. So about $7 million total for all of the Energized Denver implementation side.
I appreciate that. And for a while, Eric, we did not see you on camera. We just heard you in the background, but we have you now set up so we can see you.
Oh, cool. Perfect. We can always turn cameras down. Sorry.
You mentioned in the testimony that originally plan requirements did not align well with kind of the long-term planning schedules of many building owners. Can you just speak to overcoming that hurdle in aligning schedules?
Yeah, it's a great question and really something, to be honest, at the end of the day, we're really proud of. So the ordinance started in 2020. The first interim target was 2025, and we really just had the ordinance itself with not a lot of structure to it. And so a lot of 2021 and 2022 was building our technical guidance. That was really helped design the pathway to compliance for building owners. And, releasing that in 2022 gave people just at best 3 years to start to think about efficiency forward. And so we spent actually the last 12 months plus hearing from the community, doing more community outreach. We actually in 2024 spoke with over 2,000 unique individuals in hearing their concerns about Energize Denver, working with them to come up with these, we call them different compliance pathways, where we've kept the backbone of the ordinance the same, but developed new additional considerations as well as basically new outreach approaches for them, for building owners to figure out how to build their pathway to compliance, their compliance journey, as we say.
Appreciate that. I mean, it's always any legislation, the more collaborative you can kind of be, the more engaging you can kind of be with those stakeholders, the better the policy will be, and the more likely folks will actually be able to align with it and actually accomplish the goals that we've set out to accomplish. So appreciate that. And just one last question, and really, for all cities, what would your advice be on the best way to get started in kind of shifting and moving towards a more sustainable, resilient building?
Yeah, I probably would give a two-part answer. First is community buy-in. You have so many different stakeholders. You have contractors, you have building owners, you have individuals and everything. And figuring out where their priorities lie and what is attainable and achievable. And then from there, really demonstrating the proper end goal and the benefits of what the program's going to do is. Because we've seen a lot now in our conversations, and we've gotten a lot of buy-in from building owners and the community overall that, yeah, we have a pretty tough ordinance, but it also works for best business practices as well. And so in a way, we believe it can be a win-win scenario for everybody.
Well, I want to thank you both for taking some time out of your day to kind of walk through the work that you're doing in Denver. It is truly exciting to see. Glad you're both in the frame now, so it works out even better. But truly exciting to see this work happening across the country. And the more we can kind of share with others who are thinking about starting their own sustainability journey, the better we will all be in the long run, because we share this one planet. And the more we can do to protect it, the better we will be. So thank you again for taking some time and kind of walking through. Excited to see all the work that you all are doing, and definitely will have to make my way out to Denver to see it in person. So thank you again.
We'd love to have you out here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let us know if we can provide any other resources as you're considering these policies.
Appreciate it. Well, before we close out the hearing, I'm going to ask again if there's anybody else who'd like to come to the mic, share some thoughts, ask any questions. Seeing no hands raised, that's okay. We'll get you someday. But appreciate everyone being here. We also received a few pieces of written testimony. You can visit my council website page to read those submissions as well. I think we'll also put up the PowerPoints on the page too. So if folks wanted to kind of review the presentations that were given, that information will be available to you as well. If anyone did not want to testify but has any questions or comments that they'd like to share with me or my staff, they can also email my aide, Chelsea, at clgolterman@columbus.gov. And just want to say thank you all again for joining us. I want to say thank you to all of our speakers, Public Service, SWACO, the City of Denver, as well as the Smart Surface Coalition. It's always appreciated, and thank everyone for coming out. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening.